Hello and welcome. My name is Alan, and we are back with more Greek mythology. Today we'll be continuing the House of Thebes. So, yeah, trying to see. Okay, we should be able to hopefully finish this chapter today. Anyway, House of Thebes, Antigone. I've taken this story from the Antigone and the Oedipus at Colonus, two of Sophocles' plays, with the exception of the death of Meneceus, which is told in the play of Euripides, The Suppliants. After Jagasta's death and all the evils that came with it, Oedipus lived on in Thebes while his children were growing up. He had two sons, Polynices and Eidocles, and two daughters, Antigone and Ismene. They were very unfortunate young people, and they were far from being monsters all would shudder to look at, as the oracle had told Oedipus. The two lads were well liked by the Thebans, and the two girls were as good daughters as a man could have. Oedipus, of course, resigned the throne. Polynices, the elder son, did the same. The Thebans felt that this was wise because of the terrible position of the family, and they accepted Creon, Jacosta's brother, as the regent. For many years they treated Oedipus with kindness, but at last they decided to expel him from the city. What induced them to do this is not known, but Creon urged it, and Oedipus's sons consented to it. The only friend Oedipus had were his daughters, though through all his misfortunes they were faithful to him. When he was driven out of the city, Antigone went with him to guide him in his blindness and care for him, and Ismene stayed in Thebes to look out for his interests and keep him informed of whatever happened that touched him. After he had gone, his two sons asserted their right to the throne, and each tried to be made king. Eteocles succeeded, although he was the younger, and he expelled his brother from Thebes. Polynices took refuge in Argos and did all he could to arouse enmity against Thebes. His intention was to collect an army and march against the city. In the course of their desolate wanderings, Oedipus and Antigone came to Colonus, a lovely spot near Athens, where the one time Erinyes, the Furies, now the benignant goddesses, had a place sacred to them, and therefore a refuge for suppliants. The blind old man and his daughter felt safe there, and there Oedipus died. Most unhappy in much of his life, he was happy at the end. The oracle, which once had spoken terrible words to him, comforted him when he was dying. Apollo promised that he, the disgraced, the homeless wanderer, would bring to the place where his grave should be a mysterious blessing from the gods. Theseus, the king of Athens, received him with all honor, and the old man died rejoicing that he was no longer hateful to men, but welcomed as a benefactor to the land that harbored him. Ismene, who had come to tell her father the good news of the oracle, was with her sister when he died, and afterward they were both sent safely home by Theseus. They arrived to find one brother marching against their city, resolved to capture it, and the other determined to defend it to the end. Polyneikes, the one who attacked it, had the better right to it, but the younger Eteocles was fighting for Thebes to save her from capture. It was impossible for the two sisters to take sides against either brother. Polyneikes had been joined by 6 chieftains, one of them the king of Argos, Adrastus, and another, Adrastus's brother-in-law, Amphiaraus. This last joined the enterprise, most unwilling because he was a prophet and he knew that none of the 7 would come back alive except Adrastus. However, he was under oath to let his wife, Eriphyle, decide whenever there was a dispute between him and her brother. He had sworn this once that he and Adrastus had when he and Adrastus had quarreled and Eriphyle had reconciled them, Polyneikes won her over to his side by bribing her with the wonderful necklace that had been the wedding gift of his ancestress Harmonia, and she made her husband go to war. There were 7 champions to attack the 7 gates of Thebes, and 7 others within as bold to defend them. Eteocles defended the gate, which Polyneikes attacked, and Antigone and Ismene within the palace waited to hear which had killed the other. But before any decisive combat had taken place, a youth in Thebes, not yet grown to manhood, had died for his country, and in his death had shown himself the noblest of all. This was Creon's younger son, Menoetius. Tiresias the prophet, who had brought so many distressful prophecies to the royal family, came to bring still another. He told Creon that Thebes would be saved only if Menoetius was killed. His father utterly refused to bring this about. He said he would be willing to die himself, he said. But not even for my own city will I slay my son. He bade the boy, who was present when Tiresias spoke, "Up, my child, and fly with all speed from the land before the city learns." "Where, father?" asked the lad. "What city seek? What friends?" "Far, far away," the father answered. "I will find means. I will find gold." "Go get it then," said Menoetius. But when Creon had hurried away, he spoke other words. "My father, he would rob our town of hope, make me a coward. Ah, well, he is old, and so to be forgiven. But I am young. If I betray Thebes, there is no forgiveness. How can he think I will not save the city, and for her sake go forth to meet my death? What would my life be if I fled away? Then, when I can free my country?" He went to join the battle, and all unskilled in warfare was killed at once. Neither the besiegers nor the besieged could gain any real advantage, and finally both sides agreed to let the matter be decided by a combat between the brothers. If Eteocles was the victor, the Argive army would withdraw. If Eteocles was conquered, Polyneicles should be king. Neither was victor. They killed each other. Eteocles, dying, looked up at his brother and wept. He had no strength to speak. Polyneicles could murmur a few words. My brother, my enemy, but loved, always loved. Bury me in my homeland, to have so much at least of my city. The combat had decided nothing, and the battle was renewed. But Meneuchus had not died in vain. In the end, the Thebans prevailed, and of the seven champions, all were killed except Adrastus only. He fled with the broken army to Athens. In Thebes, Creon was in control, and he proclaimed that none of those who had fought against the city should be given burial. Eteocles should be honored with every right that the noblest received at death, but Polyneicles should be left for beasts and birds to tear and devour. This was to carry vengeance beyond the ordinance of the gods, beyond the law of right. It was to punish the dead. The souls of the unburied might not pass the river that encircles the kingdom of death, but must wander in desolation with no abiding place, no rest ever for their weariness. To bury the dead was a most sacred duty, not only to bury one's own, but any stranger who might come upon. But this duty, Creon's proclamation said, was changed in the case of Polyneicles to a crime. He who buried him should be put to death. Antigone and Ismene heard the horror that Creon had decided. To Ismene, shocking as it was, overwhelming her with anguish for the pitiful dead body and the lonely, homeless soul, it seemed nevertheless that nothing could be done except to acquiesce. She and Antigone were utterly alone. All Thebes was exulting that the man who had brought war upon them should be thus terribly punished. We are women, she told her sister. We must obey. We have no strength to defy the state. Choose your own part, Antigone said. I go to bury the brother I love. You are not strong enough, Ismene cried. Why then, when my strength fails, Antigone answered, I will give up. She left her sister. Ismene dared not follow her. Some hours later, Creon in the palace was startled by a shout. Against your orders, Polyneicles has been buried. He hurried out to be confronted with the guards he had set on the dead body and with Antigone. This girl buried him, they cried. We saw her. A thick dust storm gave her chance. When it cleared, the body had been buried and the girl was making an offering to the dead. You knew my edict? Creon asked. Yes, Antigone replied. And you transgressed the law. Your law, but not the law of justice, who dwells with the gods, Antigone said. The unwritten laws of heaven are not of today nor yesterday, but from all time. Ismene, weeping, came from the palace to stand with her sister. I helped do it, she said, but Antigone would not have that. She had no share in it, she told Creon, and she bade her sister to say no more. Your choice was to live, she said, mine to die. As she was led away to death, she spoke to the bystanders. Behold me, what I suffer, because I have upheld that which is high. Ismene disappears. There is no story, no poem about her. The house of Oedipus, the last of the royal family of Thebes, was known no more. The seven against Thebes. Two great writers told this story. It is the subject of Aeschylus's plays and one of Euripides. I have chosen Euripides' version, as so often with him reflects remarkably our own points of view. Aeschylus tells the tale splendidly, but in his hands it is a stirring martial poem. Euripides' play, The Suppliants, shows his modern mind better than any of his other plays. Polynices had been given burial at the price of his sister's life. His soul was free to be ferried across the river and find a home among the dead. But 5 of the chieftains who had marched with him to Thebes lay unburied, and according to Creon's decree would be left so forever. Adrastus, the only one alive of the 7 who had started the war, came to Theseus, king of Athens, to beseech him to induce the Thebans to allow the bodies to be buried. With him all were the mothers and sons of the dead men. All we seek, he told Theseus, is burial for our dead. We come to you for help because Athens of all cities is compassionate. I will not be your ally, Theseus answered. You led your people against Thebes. The war was of your doing, not hers. But Aethra, Theseus's mother, to whom those other sorrowing mothers had first turned, was bold to interrupt the 2 kings. My son, she said, may I speak for your honor and for Athens? Yes, speak, he answered, and listened intently while she told him what was in her mind. You are bound to defend all who are wronged, she said. These men of violence who refuse the dead their right of burial, you are bound to compel them to obey the law. It is sacred through all Greece. What holds our states together and all states everywhere, except this, that each one honors the great laws of right. Mother, Theseus cried, these are true words, yet of myself I cannot decide the matter. For I have made this land a free state with an equal vote for all. If the citizens consent, then I will go to Thebes. The poor women waited, Aethra with them, while he went to summon the assembly which would decide the misery or happiness of their dead children. They prayed, O city of Athena, help us, so that the laws of justice shall not be defiled, and through all lands the helpless and oppressed shall be delivered. When Theseus returned, he brought good news. The assembly had voted to tell the Thebans that Athens wished to be a good neighbor, but that she could not stand by and see a great wrong done. Yield to our request, they would ask Thebes. We will only what is right, but if you will not, then you choose war, for we must fight to defend those who are defenseless. Before he finished speaking, a herald entered. He asked, "Who is the master here?" The Lord of Athens. "I bring a message from the master of Thebes." "You seek one who does not exist," Theseus answered. "There is no master here. Athens is free. Her people rule." "That is well for Thebes," the herald cried. "Our city is not governed by a mob which twists this way and that, but by one man. How can the ignorant crowd wisely direct a nation's course?" "We in Athens," Theseus said, "write our own laws and then are ruled by them. We hold there is no worse enemy to a state than he who keeps the law in his own hands. This great advantage then is ours, and that our land rejoices in all her sons who are strong and powerful by reason of their wisdom and just dealing. But to a tyrant such are hateful. He kills them, fearing they will shake his power. Go back to Thebes and tell her we know how much better peace is for men than war. Fools rush on war to make a weaker country their slave. We would not harm your state. We seek the dead only to return to earth the body of which no man is the owner, but only for a brief moment the guest. Dust must return to dust again." Creon would not listen to Theseus's plea, and the Athenians marched against Thebes. They conquered the panic-stricken people in the town, thought only that they would be killed or enslaved and their city ruined. But although the way lay clear for the victorious Athenian army, Theseus held them back. "We came not to destroy the town," he said, "but only to reclaim the dead." "And our king," said the messenger who brought the news to the anxiously waiting people of Athens. Theseus himself made ready for the grave those 5 poor bodies, washed them and covered them, and set them on a bier. Some measure of comfort came to the sorrowful mothers as their sons were laid upon the funeral pyre with all reverence and honor. Adrastus spoke the last words for each. "Capaneus lies here, a mighty man of wealth, yet humble as a poor man always, and a true friend to all. He knew no guile. Upon his lips were kind words only. Eteocles is next, poor in everything save honor. There he was, rich indeed. When men would give him gold, he would not take it. He would not be a slave to wealth. Beside him, Hippomedon lies. He was a man who suffered hardship gladly, a hunter and a soldier. From boyhood he disdained an easy life. Atalanta's son is next, Parthenopaeus, of many a man, of many a woman loved, and one who never did a wrong to any man. His joy in his country's good, his grief when it went ill with her. The last is Tydeus, a silent man. He could best reason with his sword and shield. His soul was lofty, deeds not words, revealed how high it soared. As the pyre was kindled on a rocky height above it, a woman appeared. It was Evadne, the wife of Capaneus. She cried, I have found the light of your pyre, your tomb. I will end there the grief and anguish of life. Oh, sweet death, to die with the dear dead I love. She leaped down to the blazing pyre and went with her husband to the world below. Peace came to the mothers with the knowledge that at last their children's spirits were at rest. Not so to the young sons of the dead men. They vowed to watch the pyre burn, that when they were grown they would take vengeance upon Thebes. Our fathers sleep in the tomb, but the wrong done to them can never sleep, they said. 10 years later, they marched to Thebes. They were victorious. The conquered Thebans fled, and their city was leveled to the ground. Tiresias the prophet perished during the flight. All that was left of the old Thebes was Harmonia's necklace, which was taken to Delphi and for hundreds of years shown to the pilgrims there. The sons of the 7 champions, although they succeeded where their fathers failed, were always called the Epigone, the afterborn, as if they had come into the world too late, after all great deeds had been done. But when Thebes fell, the Greek ships had not sailed to the Trojan land, not yet sailed to the Trojan land, and the son of Tydeus, Diomedes, was to be famed as one of the most glorious of the warriors who fought before the walls of Troy. But yeah, that'll end that episode. And that'll bring us in the next episode upon the royal house of Athens, which in and of itself has many a famous name born to it. But yeah, pretty much every city in Greece had its heroes. But Athens, as we may know, is often remarked as the birthplace of democracy. And that's one thing we saw in this episode here. They required a vote by all the citizens of Athens on the Citizens Council. So, yeah. Yeah. Like her father, Oedipus, Antigone suffered. You know, Oedipus, he was unfortunately a victim of the circumstances. Taken away, ends up coming back and killing his actual father and marrying his mother, and unaware as to whom they were. But yeah. And so he forever blinded himself. Antigone, one of his children, one of four, one of his two daughters, she stood by her father as he wandered to help take care of him because he was blind. So she helped take care of her father as they wandered together. And she truly had love for her family. The sons, they descended into chaos, fighting to be king. Even Ismene was pretty good because she tried to take care of their home. So yeah, out of a sense of duty, they helped take care of their father and his estate, I guess you could say. But yeah. But upon his death, the two brothers descended into chaos, trying to attack each other to be king. They ended up killing each other. Eteocles was buried, and Polyneikes, they wanted him to have no burial, no rites, and to be left to be devoured by beast and buzzard. But Antigone, having love for all the members of her family, she could not stand by and do such a thing, even though she knew it was against a decree. Again, if you ever watched some of my other videos, I've said it before. Just because something's a law doesn't mean it's just. So yeah. And so Antigone decided to do what she felt was the right thing to do. Buried her brother. Gave him the rites, the offerings to the gods. And so his soul was safe to travel across the river Styx, to descend into the underworld, cross the river Styx. Yeah. But that will end this episode. As always, educate thyself, think, read, study, learn. Someone tells you something you have trouble believing, ask them to cite their sources. Thank you all for watching. I'll see you all in the next one. Until then, later.